Okay, hello people, it's Buttridge again, and this is Polybar Magic Workspaces. We just continue where we left off in the last video, configuring our workspace indicator here. That is right now really stupid. It just displays the active number of the workspace and the total number of existing workspace. So when I switch to workspace 2, it says now it's not running because the i3 listen script is not running. There, if I switch to workspace 2, it says 2.3. If I switch to 3, it says 3.3 and 1.1.3. Okay. The style I would like for it, I think it's just looks better if this first, instead of saying 1 here, it 1 could be represented by a icon, and so each workspace could have its own icon. And this method that I will show you, it could also work for like a longer name, like a string. You could, yeah, we will look into all of this. But we have to talk a bit about workspace names in i3 and why you should abandon them now and use this method instead. Especially if you're going to use this workspace indicator. Because as many things in i3, there's some really strange design decisions on how these things works. Let's see here. Here I have my workspace. I actually only use 4 workspaces, so that's why I only have 4 hotkeys for them here. And if you don't name them, you can just call the workspace by the number like this. To name a workspace, you just you can write whatever you want here. You don't have to have a number. If I would write like banana here instead of 2, then when I press super 2, it would jump to a workspace named banana. If that didn't exist, it would create it. But that means that you also have to, instead of 2, you have to write banana every time you want to call that workspace. And when you want to assign, now I don't have any rules like that, but it's very common to assign certain programs to certain workspaces. Then you also have to print the right name, like banana, for example. And a common way to do this is to create a variable, to do something here, set ws, let's call this ws5, and then we can call this banana. It is like that, right? No, we have to like this. This is how you create a variable, and then instead of 4 here we take 5, and here we have ws5. And then instead of writing 5 when you call a workspace, you just write the variable name. And I think it's common also to do something like this. And sure, this is okay, I guess, but it's not. I think it's a stupid system. If I would have designed this, I would make it so that you can name a workspace. So instead of setting a variable, maybe have this have it look something like this. Set. This doesn't work now, but I would like it to work like this. Set workspace 5 name or something, and then okay, workspace 5 is called banana. And then I can either write workspace 5 or banana, and then it will get to that workspace, and it workspace 5 and workspace banana is the same thing, but with the current i3 they are not. If you write workspace 5, you will go to workspace 5. If you write workspace banana, you will get to that workspace. And this creates some problems that it is set up like this, because I told you in the last video that I wanted to auto-create, I think I told you at least, that I want to auto-create workspaces. When I click this indicator, if there are only one workspace, I want to auto-create a new one, a new empty workspace. And let's say I auto-create workspace 2, then I would just like make a little script to create workspace 2. But there is no way for me, script-wise, to know what I3 have named the workspace 2 before it is created if it doesn't exist. And this is where where the problem starts. So, and another disadvantage is that let's say I have 10 workspaces and I want individual name for each of them, then I would have to create 10 define 10 variables, and that's 10 extra lines, you know. It clutters up the config file a bit. So we can still use and what is a workspace name? This is important now. Ask yourself, what is a workspace name? All it is an indicator in the status bar. It's just a string that displays the name of the workspace. It is nothing more. It have no more meaning at all. It's just a label. So you have to live with this now if you're gonna if you want to auto create workspaces and if you want to have names on them, which we want here. But if you're happy with just numbers, then there is no problem at all. But if you want names and you want to auto create them from places not inside i3, then we need to find an alternative way to name our workspaces. But remember, the name is just a label. It's just a name here. So stay with me, and it will be a good way to name them, but we have to name them somewhere else, not inside the i3 config file. And I guess the obvious place to name them would be inside this script file itself. But you could also create environment variables. Maybe we'll look into that, how that works. Because that's actually how I have it in my personal setup for now, but I don't know, maybe I change that some other time. Okay, that was all about namings there. I just wanted to talk about it, and the thing is, it's just good if you can use other places than i3 config, because it's just a clumsy place. Okay, so if we wanted to name the workspaces here, we could do it in different ways. I don't know, let's do this. We could make an array. Names. And then we can call this 1. And then we can make one that's called 2. Let's see how this works. And what we want to do now is to replace the names here in the output with this, and we might use the output in other ways. Right now it just prints this AWK output here, but now there are different ways to capture this output in, but let's do this. We can call it AWK output is equal to this, and you see I put a parenthesis first and then $sign parenthesis, and that means that we need 2 parentheses here. One that closes this one and the other one closes this one, and this means that this will create an array of the output here, and by default arrays are separated by white space and new lines and stuff like that. So the first key, which will be, could do this actually, echo AWK up0. This will be the first key, and if I would put 1 here, that's the second key of the array, and that will be the total number of elements. So I think this works. If I save this and then go to workspace 2, it should only say 2 yeah, no, it doesn't say 2, 3. If we wanted it to say 2, 3, then we just type this. And we can put this within quotes. Now it should look like it did before. Because now, yeah, I think you get it. And if we want to translate now the numbers to our names here instead, then we would just do this. So instead of echoing this, we could, or maybe we can do this to make it clear. If I want to print this names 1 here, then you write it like this. Names, and then these square brackets, and then 1. This will print 1, and it doesn't matter which workspace I have, it will always print this one. But this is a number, as you can see, and if I wanted to dynamically change this number to the number I got from here, then we can put in that array as the key here. I guess it gets a bit confusing and messy, but whatever, as long as it works, right? And then 0, because that's the first key, which is the number of the currently active workspace, and that number will be translated into this. But now we only have 2 names. We will look into this soon, how to fix this. So now if I go to workspace 2, it says 2. If I go to workspace 1, it says 1. If I go to workspace 3, it says nothing, because that array element doesn't exist. And there are different ways we could set the default value. I guess the cleanest one would be something like this, I suppose, but none of these are really clean because I'm a dirty person. And then we can call this one, let's just call it www, whatever. And a way to set the default value is like here we are trying to call a variable. Now it's so messy here, but whatever. Then you can add a colon and a dash. And that means that if this variable is empty, now it is an array, but this could also be a normal variable. If that variable would be empty, then display something else by colon and then dash, and then it displays something else. So we could here just write a string like hello. So now if I go to workspace 2, it will say 2. If I go to workspace 3, it says hello, because that was the default value. But the default value could also be a variable or an array element or whatever. I know lots of things here at the same time in this video. Now I don't know, maybe this is not so good, but now the default value will be the 0 index inside our names array here. So now if I go to workspace 2, it says 2, workspace 1, it says 1, workspace 3, it says www, workspace 4, it says www. So that's a way to add names to the workspace numbers. And of course we could use our good old fontawesome icon selector thing. It needs the file list here. Let me just find that really quick. So if we wanted this wheelchair guy, for example, as the name for our first workspace, and then we could this trophy is a nice workspace 2 name. And the lemon is the default if it doesn't, if no name is set, then it will display a lemon. Let's see if this works. Trophy, lemon, wheelchair. It's not harder than this, guys. And if we wanted to, we could say that workspace 1, we call that wheelchair and the work, and then we can call this a media. And here it's a good idea when you have spaces. It's almost always a good idea, even if it's just one character. It's better to be safe than sorry, you know. So put quotes around them. You could even put single quotes here. It's even better. But this should work. So now if I go to workspace 2, we have a trophy, and then we have media. Workspace 3, we just have a lemon. Workspace 1, it says wheelchair and work. So this is how you name your workspaces in this fashion, and in my opinion, it's better. And with this, we could create new workspaces by just calling a number, and then it will automatically get the right name and icon or whatever. And of course, we want to display the total number of workspaces at the end here, and then we just add that. So, and that is AWKOP, because that's this array, you know, and 1. And now it will say media, and then 3, lemon 3, wheelchair work 3. So this is how I like to have it. Because I think that is really interesting to know that you have more than one workspace. That can be very good to know. So before you kind of shut down your computer, you see, oh wait, I have 3 active workspaces. What's that about? And then you can see, but it takes up no space at all. And maybe you have 5 active workspaces or whatever. It's usually more than enough to just know that. I personally don't want any strings. I'm happy with just an icon like this. But if you would like names, you could do it in that fashion. You saw how easy it is. But this is more, and you see now it's also consistent with the rest of the bar. The workspace looks like just one other indicator here. Nothing weird about it. So now we're coming somewhere, and I don't know. Now it's not much more than adding the functionality. You remember we wanted to be able to scroll and click and stuff here. I guess we can add the scrolling because that's easier than the clicking action. So maybe we should start with the scroll action. And I think that is actually the scrolling. We can add it here. I wonder if we can write like wheel up equals i3 message workspace next. I wonder if this works. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's called wheel up. Let's just to make sure that this is the right way to click left equals i3 message workspace next. So if I click this, we go to this workspace, to this workspace. You see now we already have the cycle thing here. So now we just have to add this to the wheel somehow. I'm not really sure how to do that, but if I have the documentation. Maybe in configuration. Here we have scroll up, scroll down. That was easy. So scroll up, save, and now if I scroll this, upwards, we cycle the workspaces that exist. And as you can see, it changes because every time we change workspace, then our listener script, it doesn't care if it's polybar, if it's from i3 with a hotkey. That's the nice thing with this setup, that you don't have to have individual always call a script or anything. You can still have your normal i3 config workspace changers, and it will still activate this hook and the scripts and stuff. So we just need to add a scroll down action here, and I think it's not harder than writing it like I think we can write prev actually. Scroll down, yeah, and scroll up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, so that was really easy. But when we clicked it, we wanted a kind of special workspace thing. And first I thought maybe we should use this script and create it here, but now I feel this is this turned out really good, this little script here. So instead, let's create a new script that handles that action if we would click here on the workspace indicator, and leave this as it is. And then we can also add that action here, so we don't clutter up our nice little script here. One thing I was thinking was to maybe have different colors for the name and the total number. That could be a good idea if we didn't have icons and numbers instead. Then it can be confusing to have two numbers in the same color. And to add colors, you could add this formatting strings that we have looked into in a different video, but I think I will leave it at that. And I just thought that maybe the best default value, instead of having this stupid lemon, we could have that, but we could also, as the default, we could just display the number of the workspace. That makes more sense when I think about it. So by adding this, now if I go to workspace 2, we have a trophy. Workspace 1, we have a wheelchair guy, but at workspace 3, now it says 3, and workspace 4, it says 4, and so on. And the reason that we get 4, 4 and 3, 3 is that a new workspace is created when I go to 4, so the total number is 4. And when I go back to 3 here, then that empty workspace is destroyed, so now the total number is 3. But if I would create a terminal here and go back to 3, then it will say 3, 4, just so you know what's going on here. So I guess this is up to you what you want to display. If you want to display the default icon, or if you want to display the actual workspace number, you could do that with this, in this way. Okay, but we were gonna do that clicking action thingy. Let's go to polybar-config, and then we add a click left. And this time we call a script then, I guess. And what should we call that? Let's call it workspace prev, or prev workspace or something. Prev ws. That means go to previous workspace, but if that workspace doesn't, there is no other workspaces, we want to create a new workspace. So we just save this, and then we create a script with the autoscript. We create this prev ws. And then I don't remember the i3 command. I wonder if I have it here. It's something i3 workspace back and forth. we can try it here. i3 message workspace. If I just run this, we should get a, yeah, here we have it. Back and forth. And this means go back to the last activated workspace, whichever it is. So i3 message workspace back and forth. Let's do this. Now I go to workspace 4 and now I go, or workspace 3. This is workspace 4. Now I go to workspace 1, and if I activate workspace back and forth, it will activate workspace 4. Yeah. And if I go back to 1, if I would have workspace 2 activated and workspace 1 and then run workspace back and forth, it will go to 2. So this is the command that we want to run in our prev workspace here. If I save, and now if I click this, it will switch between workspace 2 and workspace 1 here, because that's the last active one. If I would have a different workspace here, like workspace 4, now it switches between 3 and 4 because I scrolled and that activates a new, I think you get it. But let's say I have workspace 3 and now I click, it will cycle between 3 and 1. We could, of course, just add this command directly into Polybar, but what we wanted was to create a workspace if it only exists one workspace. And we can do that by copying this function. Or we can actually copy from here. Prev ws, and then we can call this total number of workspaces, whatever. Cryptic variable names, that's you should always have cryptic variable names. And now we are only interested in the count of the workspace. We don't care about the names. We can remove this, but we count at every time it encounters a number. We don't print this line here. We only print the count, and that will be the content of this TNWS variable. And what we want to do here now is to check if TNWS is. We could actually do this, so I can show you that really quickly how that works. This is one way to write tests, you know, 2 square brackets, and then you write a test. Is this equal to that? Is this variable empty? But you can also write tests with a different kind of test with double normal parentheses like this. But in these tests you can only perform like math tests. And inside these, you don't, when you call a variable, you don't need the $sign. So we can write this, and then we can check if this is less than 2, meaning 1 or less. It will never be less than 1 because there is always one workspace existing. But if it is less than 2, then it should create a new workspace and switch to that instead. You know what? We should actually we copy this whole thing here because we want to know what the active workspace is also. So then we go back here. Yeah, and we can call it AWKOP. So now it's an array with the first key equals to the currently focused workspace and the second key to the total number of workspace. And now, since it's an array, we need to put it inside things like this. I think so. So AWKOP 1, which is the number of the existing workspaces. If that is less than 2, then we want to create, if that is true, just 2 ands. If it's not true, then the what happens after this will not be executed. Then we create i3 message workspace, and then you can also do this this thing by adding 2 parentheses and a $ in front of it. Then you can, that will be the output of an arithmetic, a mathematical expression, and that expression will be that expression will be the current workspace number, which is we don't know, the current workspace number plus 1. So if we would be on workspace 3 and that is the only existing workspace, then it will create workspace 4 and switch to that. Otherwise it will do workspace back and forth here, and to be able to do this, so this will basically be an if-else kind of thing. We can clean up this code a bit, and then we add a backslash here too, and then we add the OR sign here. So if this expression is true, meaning that there is only one existing workspace, then it will create a new workspace with the number that's 1 more than the currently active workspace. But if more than one workspace exists, then it will call this function workspace back and forth instead. I don't know, maybe overcomplicated to do this, but I'm not even sure it works, but let's save this and see. If I click here, then it should just switch to the last active workspace, and it does. And I guess we have to test this, we have to close everything on this workspace, and on this workspace, and on this is workspace 1, and this workspace, and now we only have one workspace. If I click this workspace now, it should create workspace number 2 if this script works. And it does, because number 2 is named with the trophy. And as you can see now, this would never work if we would have like the normal i3 way of naming workspaces. Then we would have to know, of course we could know that, or we couldn't really know. Then we couldn't do this math to just the active workspace plus 1. But then we also have to know what is the name of that workspace, and we can't, there's no way to figure that out. If we don't make some really crazy parsing script and make our own config parser and stuff of the i3 config, because you cannot know what the name of a workspace that doesn't exist yet, what it is. But with our script here now, it will automatically append the names from this array instead. And don't you think it's cleaner? And now you just have to call workspaces by number and then name them in this file instead. I don't know. This is how I like to have it, at least. One thing we could do here is, before we end this video, is to add this script, this prev workspace. Because that's something that's really useful, and maybe it's a good idea to add it as a key here. I don't know what command we wanted for that. Maybe, I don't know, let's say mod and W or super W, if we haven't already used that somewhere. I don't know. So super W, and then prev workspace, and we have the exe command here. So if I save and reload the config, and now if I hit super W, it creates workspace 2. If I hit it again, it will cycle between these two. If I create a terminal here, and then I create workspace 3, which doesn't have a name, so it will default to the number. If I create a workspace here, I go to workspace 1, I hit super W, it will cycle between 1 and 3. So I think it's really nice to have it set up like this, and as you can see, it's not a big deal. And it might, I have to explain this maybe once again. We are using hooks now, you know, in Polybar, and the nice thing here is that this only activates this hook and run this script only when the workspace changes, and that means that it doesn't consume any resources at all when we not want it to do that. Because I have seen, and I have actually used it myself before I figured out how hooks worked. I had a script that displayed the exact same thing here, but that was a script that ran every 1 second to check which workspace was active and doing things like this. Every second it did this. Super stupid. Now it only pings by the Python script. The drawback is, of course, that you have to have this Python script in the background, but in one way it's just cool because you can do a lot of things as we have seen here now with the Python script. I know, we haven't done the cool thing, switching backgrounds. So let's do that in the next video, switch backgrounds. I say thank you for watching. I hope you have endured, and I hope you have learned something from these videos. Maybe a bit confusing with these array creations and stuff, but just look at the scripts for a while and you maybe or maybe not understand what's going on. But really short here, when you create an array automatically like this by putting a parenthesis before anything, then it will automatically create an array here with the first index, which is 0, will be the first value in that output, and the second. So you could also create an array, like really quick here, I just want to show you. Array equals, and then parentheses, and then you could say 1 and then 2. And then that would mean that array 0, which is the first index in that array, that would equals to 1, and array 1 would equals to 2. And this, now we have hard-coded this 1 and 2, but here it is the output of the command which we have here. So that's how arrays, automatic arrays works, or numbered arrays, or whatever they're called. There's another type of array that we haven't looked into that's called associative arrays, where instead of numbers you can have special names, strings as names, but they work a bit different, but they are very useful too. Okay, next video we look into this wallpaper switching thingy and see how that works. And I think if you're smart, you know how to do it just by looking at the scripts we have already done. Thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video.